So it is very specific that the contract was approved by the Attorney General, and that is what went to the millers. So we wonder now, this other contract that is invariant with what you have stated categorical on the procedure and the approval, where it came from and who approved it, because the nature of saying that it was a sample, and it has passed through the process in which the Attorney General has approved. I think the CS, you are missing the point completely.
Chair, it will be highly unlikely that a miller would sit down to tamper with a contract. Highly unlikely. All that they have annexed alongside the other documents came from your office. At what point do the makers of that contract chose to deal with Jared Okello separately and Honorable Linturi separately on the same contractual obligation? That must have come from your office, Bwana CS.
And Chair, I think it's quite clear that if there is a contract, if at all there is a contract somewhere, it came from the Attorney General's office, and it can only be one. It can only be one. So maybe we need somebody from the AG's office to tell us which contract this was, and where it is, and if it is authentic, and it's the one we are dealing with. 2 or 3 may be unnecessary, but from the AG's can only be one.
Confirm that the contract you have is actually from the AG's office.
And maybe so that the CS can know the seriousness of the matter. When the millers appeared, they said that because of non-payment of their dues, the government will have to pay an interest. It was around, I think, around 300 million because of the contract they signed. So if the contract they signed is not even clear where it came from, and we have a government that is accumulating, by last week it was 300 million. We don't know this week it will be how many million, depending on the interest that the contract was executed, and now the contract is in question, because it seems that is not what the Attorney General approved as you had annexed.
Chairman, I hope now the committee is able to get into my shoes and be able to understand why I raised the issue of being assistant to answer questions by people that were in office during the execution of this program. I was trying to avoid such embarrassing situations where I have to own the reports which I was not clear of. And when this draft proposal, or the proposed draft contract was attached, I've also looked at the purposely forwarding letter to the former Cabinet Secretary by the Attorney General, who gave his advisory. And, you know, it's just a letter forwarding the proposed contract. So it's not signed. I have no copy of the signed contract, which would make me now believe the contract attached here was what was approved by the Attorney General then. So it's just a letter. And secondly, when I read from the contract to Mombasa Millers, and especially that provision on that code 3.4, then it's completely skewed in favor of the miller. It's skewed in favor of the miller. So my contract that is purportedly to have been approved by the Attorney General is only 2 lines. The other one is 4 lines, which goes to extent of even making or saying the miller shall not be accountable. So, Chair, I am in a very awkward situation.
Those are the issues we have with the contract, CS. We are aware that the millers were given total comfort total comfort to supply without any penalties, and not responsible. The contract exonerates them from the responsibility of the end user of the product. So it was skewed to support the miller, and I want to tell you why. To give out money.
Chairman, I think from the look of things, you need to do a better job in this matter, because I think this is front from where I sit. I have no shame in admitting realities of life and where the truth is, because
members yes.
Chair, it is good the CS is getting to where we are. We are at a loss. And Chair, I would rather we ask the CS to provide all the contracts given to the millers and all the contracts given to the cereals association, the two sets of contracts. Then we can look at it and we can be able to know where the problem arose. The way he's saying, this is fraud, this is fiasco, this is corruption. It's not different from Goldenberg, Chair. And I would rather we give him time so that when he comes back,
problems that our people ordinarily face. In fact, if you were the drivers of the message and the agenda, people tend to trust those people that they've elected more than anybody else. So we ask you to partner with us in this journey, because together, I'm sure we will be able to really make a lot of difference in this journey. So with those few remarks, Chairman, if you allow me, and I'll ask to step out for a minute, once Mr. Hoko can be able to respond to those other specific issues, that are the questions that the members have asked. Of course, will be assisted by Kemonia and the others. Kemote, thank you.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, CS. Thank you, Chair. Maybe I will start from where the CS has made a comment on the issue that was raised by Honorable Sabina on the issue of the Kenyan food plate. We can't agree anymore with the statements that was raised by Mheshimiwa. We are saying that the Food Balance Sheet Committee should help us define what is a Kenyan food plate. The Kenyan food plate in Trans Nzoia is different from the Kenyan food plate in Northeastern. Therefore, it would be a good idea to have us properly define what is the Kenyan food plate in as far as what region is concerned. And that is what was envisaged also under this reform. So that we can warehouse, we can keep all these food commodities. We are no longer depending on maize. Maize is just being used as a measure, as an equivalent, because it has been used for very many years, and we are able to say that so-and-so is able to consume 1.5 bags of maize in a year. Those measures have been done, unlike for these other food commodities. So it's just being used for purposes of planning and management. But the proper food plate will be defined by the food balance sheet, and it will be based on regions, what people consume in those specific regions. So we agree, and we say that the food plate is different from one point to the other. The other issue that was raised was how the transition was handled. We want to suggest that we understand that the transition was handled in the most appropriate way, and it took almost 3 years for the whole process to be done. The only delay is in the development of the respective legislation. We have developed regulations to guide the National Cereals and Produce Board in the management of the food reserve. The regulations are already with the government printers for purposes of publication. And at the end of the day, in guidance of the CAB memo and the Cabinet Directive, we are also going to review the National Cereals and Produce Board Act so that it is in time with what is happening today. When you look at that act, at the time when it was being developed, it was a regulatory law at that time. If you can remember, Chair, that is the time you could not move your maize without a movement permit, and it was being issued by the board. All those have been deleted, and those are no longer the functions of the board. The board is purely a commercial entity as we speak today. So the commercial entity in the board will continue, but at the same time, it will also undertake the food reserve function as a function of the national government. The national government, this will be done using the cereal board as a special purpose vehicle to undertake a function of the national government, which is a normal practice of the government. Chair, you also raised the issue of the funds which were raised. The funds which were raised as a result of the procurement were funds belonging to Strategic Food Trust Fund, and they're the only ones who could spend that money. The procurements were done by National Cereals and Produce Board. So as we speak today, the farmers have a feel that their money is owed to them by the National Cereals and Produce Board, which is actually the normal position. The person who you deal with is the person whom you will demand your money from. And they submitted their commodities to National Cereals and Produce Board, which was acting on behalf of the Strategic Food Trust Fund. I want to believe that the MD will expound more on the relationship between the board and the trust fund, and why it was not possible for us to pay the farmers at that time. Chair, the issue of subsidy, you have raised it up very well, Chair, but we think that even the subsidy at the flour is not the best way to go about it. We have been given the experiences of other countries like India. The subsidy is done through either a voucher or cash transfers. And we feel the best way to address issues of food insufficiency here is not to give subsidy per se, but to do maybe cash transfers, particularly in areas where there are issues of food, of inadequate food in the market, or people are suffering. This would also allow the people whom you are giving the money to buy food of their preference. We've just said that food plate is different. But if you procure and distribute, you'll be requiring people to consume what you have distributed, not what they prefer. So under this reform, we undertake that the ministry would make sure that there's available food in the market, but the ministries responsible for social protection can possibly even transfer funds to the benefiting communities, and then they procure from the market. The issue of warehouses with the National Cereals and Produce Board, it is true with the National Cereals and Produce Board has a strong network of warehouses, and they have a capacity to undertake up to 22 million bags in the network of the houses they have. But the warehouses are underutilized. As we reported early, the largest amount of bags they have stored under the Strategic Food Reserve is actually 3 million bags. These warehouses in the directive were required that the board allows the private sector also to use some of this space and store their commodity in these warehouses so that they can be available can be available in the various areas. We are not relenting on our responsibility of strategic food reserve per se. Chair, you said that we are leaving it out to the private sector. We are not doing that. What we are doing is that we are managing the food reserve using the warehousing receipts. In the warehousing receipt, a depositor is allowed to deposit their commodity in any warehouse, including the private warehouses. When it is in a private warehouse, we'll be able to account for it when we procure that receipt. And therefore, at any given time, we'll be able to know how much commodity we have in our warehouses, and therefore the amount of commodities we have within our borders. And this will tell us when to send out signals to put in place mechanism to address any potential deficit that would be envisaged in the future. The loss of maize due to aflatoxin.
Can I just intervene there? Don't mind.
Intervention.
The President, I think this warehousing receipt, which is a very good idea. What happened is, I think even it was launched in Transoya, and it's dead. Please, can you expound on that?
Thank you, Chair. We can confirm that it is not dead per se. It's not dead. No, it's not dead. The warehousing receipt system is alive, although under the Executive Order number 1 of 2023, the Warehousing Receipt Council was transferred to the Ministry of Trade. That's exactly where it's supposed to be because it's a trade issue. But you realize it's dependent on production. For farmers to take their excess produce to the warehouse, they must have surplus produce. But if you can review, in the last 2-3 years, the productions have been below our targets. So we've not had farmers deposit in the warehouses in the numbers that we expect. There are a few deposits in Nakuru, some small quantities deposit in Trans Nzoia, but the quantities have not been sufficient to create the expected impact in terms of the warehousing receipt system. The issue of low prices at harvest, which was raised by Honorable Member, we have provided for the warehousing receipt system again, so that farmers do not sell when the prices are low. We would encourage farmers to deposit in a warehouse and use the warehouse receipt as a collateral. One of the problems we have experienced in this country most of the time is that when the farmers produce, the moment they harvest, the ownership becomes of the middlemen and the traders. So the farmer has no say. The commodity will be sold and the farmer will be given money which is not maybe commensurate with the commodity. So we are requesting that the farmers deposit their commodities in the warehouse. They get a warehouse receipt. If they need money, they can use the collateral, the receipt as a collateral to get money from any financial institution, and then only sell their commodity when the prices are favorable in the market. So that's how we have addressed that, and that also helps us to address post-harvest management issues. Chair, I think that is addressing most of the issues that were raised. You also asked, Chair, you also wanted to know the evidence for the transmission of the money. When you look just before Annex 7, the documents in Annex 6 towards the end, you'll see an indication of money transfer. And Chair, as you're also aware, when a fund is wound up, the funds are normally transferred to the National Treasury. That's exactly what was done. Chair, with the permission and the permission of the CS, the MD can maybe respond to the issue on aflatoxin and the rest touching on the board.
Maybe on that particular issue of transfers, we can see that 8.858 plus billion was transferred from NCPB account held at Cooperative Bank to the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund account held at Central Bank. Is that correct? Through this particular provision.
Yes, Chair.
Then after that we have an amount here which is very different from the one I've just mentioned. Let me just get the amount. It's 9.872351812.75 is transferred from the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund account held at Central Bank to the National Exchequer account, which is account number. The Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund account is 10003875888, and this other one is 1503987. This is the National Exchequer account, which received 9.872 billion. Now, can you confirm that this account number 1503987 is actually the Exchequer account?
Chair, I request the MD to assist in addressing that.
MD.
Thank you very much indeed, Chairman. I wish to confirm, Chairman, that the monies, the 8 billion shillings, 8.8 billion shillings, was wired to the account which was given to us by the PS, who is the administrator of the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund. And I think there is a letter to that effect. And being the administrator, we, as an agent, SVP was an agent, we just have to do exactly as guided. So that is what I can say on that matter, Chair. The other issue, Chairman, is about our relationship between ourselves and the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund. Now, the relationship between SPB and Strategic Food Reserve Fund was a commercial arrangement, where we had a commercial contract. Now, this is where now the commercial arm of the institution came into play, where we viewed the fund as a customer to NCBB in terms of storage, in terms of management of the cereals, fumigation and all that. And I can say the contract was very clear. We had clear arrangements, or now we are going to be billing them on a continuous basis. Now, the other issue is aflatoxin maize, which was invested with aflatoxin. I need to say this was a maize which was of 2017-2018, and the reason for this was because of humidity issues in the silos. This was made the maize which was in the silos. It was because there was a delay in buying the jute bags for storage in the conventional stores. And therefore, because of that, we had that challenge of aflatoxin, because the funds for buying of the jute bags was not released by SFRT in good time to buy the jute bags. And therefore, there was that challenge of aflatoxin. But going forward, we have ensured that that doesn't happen. We have bought sufficient jute bags so that every time we have strategic food reserve stocks, we have sufficient storage in our conventional stores.
Thank you very much, MD, but you've answered only part of the question on the transfers. My question was, can you confirm that account number 1503987 is actually the exchequer account, the national exchequer account?
Chairman, Chair, I want to ask a supplementary question on the same.
On this particular issue?
Yes.
Okay.
But MD, this contaminated maize, what happened to it? Have you sold it or you destroyed it? Because I understand, even if it is contaminated, there are a lot of other use or other companies that can make use of it, like cement companies, cement producing companies for energy. Also, it can be used for animal feeds in some circumstances. So what happened to this 56,806 contaminated maize?
Chairman, please, if you allow me, for the member not to mislead the team, we cannot use aflatoxin-infested maize to feed our animals.
Yeah, aflatoxin will pass through the animal to the human being still, so we have to destroy. I don't know whether they destroy it. Did you destroy it?
Yeah, I get a bit upset. But MD, in all due respect, you have the management of the technical team. Why did this happen, actually? That huge amount of money that you have used expert to actually to buy. And you are saying, you know, it just went to waste. Don't you have a technical team?
The Chair, I think the MD responded by saying that there was a delay in the buying of jute bags for storage in the conventional silo way. And that is what it's attributing to the infection. And then there is the question of whether this account is the national exchequer account. Chairman, if you allow, probably the accounting officer or the accountant can be able to answer because he's the one who was paying.
Please proceed.
Yeah, I want to confirm that that money went to Exchequer account, and the reason why there is a small difference between what they credited in that account is that we had a small balance in that account, so we transferred everything there.
You were involved in the transferring this money. Can we get a document that shows money moved from the Strategic Fund Reserve Trust Fund to the tune of 9.872 billion. This account number 1003875888 to the Exchequer, National Exchequer account to the tune of, the same amount of money, account number 155033987. Can you give us the transaction document?
Mr. Chairman, we had not come with the documents, but we have them in our office. I can be able to provide.
Yeah, we would like to see that document. The issue that we have not explored on fully is the issue of the setting up of National Fund Reserve. We asked how new and different is it? It's still being anchored under the NCPB. You are going to have a legislation, change of the legislation of NCPB. How is it going to be different? Because we are not able to get that clearly. We need to vote money for you to be able to do that. And we are not convinced so far that you will not sit another day and change it to something different and take money back to Exchequer. So how new and different is it going to be?
In addition, Chair, the trend these days is to manage food reserves in hard currencies. Are we able to see this, that NCPB has got hard currency that it can use instead of storing food in commodities? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. The challenges that were realized in the previous arrangement, including the challenge of the loss of the 58,000 bags, are some of the issues we are trying to address in the new approach. The MD stated that the delay in procurement of the jute bags was as a result of the delay of access to money from the Strategic Trust Fund. So those are some of the challenges that we are trying to address by the new approach. The second thing that is new, Chair, is that at this point, we will no longer talk in terms of physical commodities, in terms of ownership of the commodity. What we will want at any given time, Chair, allow me to give this analogy. At any given time, when you deposit your money into a bank account, all you need to do when you need the money is to go to the bank and get the money. With that analogy, we are saying that the National Cereals and Produce Board, in the new arrangement, will at any given time avail to us the quantities that we need whenever we have deposited the quantities with them. The issue of the quantities being contaminated with aflatoxin, the quantities getting bad, stolen, will no longer be our business. This would allow us also to ensure that we maintain a quality produce at any given time that we have the food reserve. The other issue is the issue of use of the warehouse receipt. In the previous approach, warehouse receipts were not being used. At this time, it is procurement and release of warehousing receipt, which would help in management of the quality in terms of ensuring that there is no wastage. The other issue is relying on market forces. The current approach is such that the prices are announced. Whenever they are announced, usually they are announced slightly higher than the market prices. When they are announced higher than the market prices, most of the time what would happen is that traders will take advantage. They mop up commodity from farmers at lower price and deposit the commodity to to the food reserve system that would be existing at this time. This would not benefit the farmers, for one, and two, it would interfere with the market forces. You announce a higher price, then the tendency to hoard is there, so that they can submit and to sell at the higher price. Then the board would again be asked to sell the commodity at lower price. This results in losses and results in a non-sustainable food reserve system. You buy at high price, you sell at low price, definitely you'll be having book losses or book balances every year to account for. The new approach that we are proposing is to have a sustainable kind of funding, so that whenever we procure through the warehouse receipt, we release to the market at the prevailing market prices, and also have some transactional levy to enable sustain the fund. This will not require us to go to Exchequer every year to request for funds. The funds will always be available, and the commodity will always be recycling in the market. The other aspect of the current proposed approach is to make sure that at any given time, the board is aware of the farmers who are producing for it. At the moment, it just goes to the market like anybody else. But we'd like to have a system where we have an element of contract arrangement between the board and the farmers, so that the farmers produce knowing that they are going to sell to the food reserve, which has not been the case. So, Chair, again, an important aspect is about decision making. In the previous times, we've heard of cases where maybe the CS would make announcement of the available maize, but on the other side, the traders would have a different figure. The system we are proposing is to make sure that we have total accountability of the food commodity available within our borders, so that when a decision is being made, it is made at the right time and it is the correct decision. That is the essence of also having the food balance sheet within the current food reserve system that we have.
Okay, I just want to follow up a small issue. You said that it was very difficult for you to get money from the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund. Is that correct? It was not easy. So we had to lose around 56,000 packs of maize to aflatoxin infestation. That's what you said. Now, I want to follow up a bit. Now, you also said that now you are going to be using warehouse receipting system. Warehouse, in my understanding, the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund was domiciled in the ministry, or rather the ministry was managing it. Right now, the warehouse receipting system the warehouse receipting council is with the Ministry of Trade. When is it going to be easier? Is it when you have cross-ministry transactions, or when it was within the same ministry? The other issue you have said is the food balance sheet, the management of the food balance sheet, the warehouse receipting issue, and the traders keeping the records. How have you ensured that you have captured the entire food available in the country without necessarily being involved in any form of storage and management through NCPB? Because NCPB had an elaborate management system for the production areas and the consumption areas. The distribution system was by NCPB, and that was the purpose of NCPB. You give the NCPB another role of having the strategic food reserve, and then you have warehousing being controlled by, even including NCPB, I believe, being controlled by the Ministry of Trade. The final one, which one comes first? Is it investment in the National Foods Reserve or the legislation? Absence of a legislation led to a hasty decision to kill the Strategic Food Reserve Trust Fund. You still need money to start a National Food Reserve without a legislation. I have not seen any legislative proposal from NCPB to us to tell us that we want to amend this law to provide for So which one comes first?
Thank you, Chair. For clarity, I said that the loss of the 50,000 plus bags of maize by the board was as a result of commodity by the Strategic Food Trust Fund for the board, where they were supposed to provide the jute bags, but they took them a little bit too long to avail the jute bags. The delay in the kind of arrangement that was there between the board and the Strategic Food Trust Fund is what caused the loss, if you look at it technically, Chair. Chair, when you look at warehousing receipt system, maybe it would be important that I clarify this. The warehousing receipt system does not own or operate any warehouse. The warehousing receipt system is a regulator. The Warehousing Receipt Council is just a regulator. What it does, it makes sure that the receipt issued in a warehouse is genuine, valid, and it regulates that space. So even though the Warehousing Receipt System Council has moved to trade, the commodities will be in a warehouse. One of the warehouse operators is the National Cereals and Produce Board. And it's National Cereals and Produce Board that is going to procure these receipts. Whenever the board procures the receipt, it knows it has certain quantity or commodity in a warehouse somewhere. And this warehouse can be one of its own or one by the private sector. So at any given time, that commodity will belong to National Cereals and Produce Board. The only difference is that it will be in another warehouse somewhere. That is the clarity I wanted to bring in as far as Warehousing Receipt System Council is concerned. So the council is just a player in terms of ensuring that there is no foul play in the issue, transfer, and in the whole business of handling the receipt.
Let me just hold on. In the previous arrangement, the trust fund was not keeping the commodity. The commodity was being kept by the NCPB. Same institution, structural rigidities, they lose so much. Right now, you have warehouses sitting in council, sitting in trade. Trade for all practical and theoretical purposes will not be managing our food system. The food management ministry is the Ministry of Agriculture. You are the ones who will ascertain that you have enough food to eat or we don't have food. So you are delegating this particular responsibility to trade. Trade knows commodity must be sold to get money. Although the warehouse is sitting council is just keeping documentation and management of the commodities through the documentation processes, they are not under you. They are not under CS Linturi. He has to engage. And don't tell me that they meet every day with the CS courier to agree on some of these entities. So it will be easier. When previously the commodity is domiciled in NCPB, the only thing you needed, the council is domiciled in the ministry. The only thing you needed is just a matter of, under one PS. Now you have several people. There are two ministers involved. There are several PSs involved. There is even no law. What are you telling us?
Sure. Maybe just to add on, CS. I think we are trying to create so many bodies to manage a very simple exercise. Because what we just need is that we need a strategic food reserve. We need maize in our stores so that when there is scarcity, you can be able to use it to stabilize the maize. Are you telling us we shall need a whole council to come and manage the maize that are in cereals? And we have these cereals that we have built over time. It has all the structures. Whom are we not trusting in these cereals or this management that now it is even becoming across ministries exercise? So I think it has to come clear, and just to avoid the other predicament of the other food reserve that disappear to thin air, I think we need a legislation. So that we can establish the strategic food reserve fund that is well managed, that has a board, and it is under the Ministry of Agriculture, so that it is the sole prerogative of the Ministry of Agriculture to ensure that there is food security in the country through the strategic food reserve.
Chair, I think this is a misplacement. Bana CS, please, the idea of having warehouse and receipt, we are talking about agricultural products, maize, wheat, rice, beans, what have you, to take to whatever warehousing, you get a receipt for it, and do it, and then you can use that receipt at the end of the whole thing, be able to use it maybe to do other businesses. Now, when I see us, don't let this out, because if anything, go do benchmarking. I think the whole thing started from India and South Africa, and the old Ministry of Agriculture, because what has trade got to do with, say, selling of the rice? I mean, it's just misplaced, just as it is, again, as I told you in the beginning, like irrigation is misplaced in water. What do you irrigate? Do you irrigate water or you get crops? I have no idea, but CS, be serious on this, and if possible, take this committee for benchmarking in these two places, both in India and South Africa. You see how this thing works. So they are moving some of these things from your area, and they have been misplaced. I beg to differ. I didn't even know until I'm being told now that it's called Minister of Trade.
We are saying don't commodify food. Don't give food to economists, my friend. Economists have no heart. I'm sorry, there are very many in here. They are not. They really don't. They want to see money. So if we commodify food, you will have a problem in this country. The problems that Raila Odinga is bringing will escalate, and you need to take care of that. He is now planning for Mondays and Thursdays, so the more why you need to wake up. I would like to consider closing this session, because we need to go to the chamber, and we also need to release the minister to go back to do his work. I think if there's anything remaining, of course we have requested for some documents. If there's anything remaining, we shall follow up so that we can do a complete report, because the House needs to be convinced that you are bringing in something that is better now, more reliable, and that the value for money will be there, and that it will really secure Kenyans more. If you're increasing the red tape, the bureaucracy, I don't think it will see the light of day. It has to be clearer. You have tried to explain, but you are not clear, so go and take a retreat. Take them for retreat. Let them come up with something that really will help us. We would like something that can help us out. We don't want to make things so complicated for us, only for the sake of it. And as members are noting, the ministry is becoming very lean. Blue economy and agriculture disappeared. Then you also irrigation disappeared. We don't know. In fact, we put money in the State Department for Livestock Development to respond to emergencies in the last supplementary. That money found itself in the ASAL, another outfit. They did not even have the idea. We developed this idea and put in 400 million, which was taken to ASAL. So I think there are very many things that are not clear. Sit down as a ministry and go for a retreat and make a proposal to the executive. I'm sure they'll listen to you. So I think we call this session to adjournment, and maybe want to see as your last. Finally, I think we will request to be left with you for a few minutes to discuss a few in-house issues when everybody else has left. And we request everybody to leave quickly, because we have to go to the chamber. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Let me appreciate your sentiments, and I must say that they are well noted. They will go a long way in enriching our way forward in terms of addressing the issues that we have really to deal with. And let me also say that I agree to some extent that we require some kind of law or regulation to deal or to address the aspects of the National Food Reserve. I think
you short, but Savina Chege is disturbing me, asking me about the yellow maize. Can you confirm that there's going to be yellow maize for livestock?
Chair, I am not disturbing you. You know, millers can import.
On our white maize, And we have already gazetted 500,000 metric tons yellow maize for animal feed. And if you are anybody who wants to bring, you are invited to come to my office. We'll be able to facilitate the issues of permit for them to bring. Thank you.
So the session is adjourned at 3 or 4 minutes to 2. Members will need to be in the house at 2:30, and we need the minister for about 5 minutes.